Everyone has found themselves in a dark place at one time or another. It's a part of being human and living life. Sometimes life throws us a curveball and we suffer in ways that we simply feel we cannot understand, even though we try so hard. We look to God for answers, but in our darkest times, we may not see Him there. It is during these times, it would be so easy to lose faith in Him. It's not supposed to be this way, follows the author, Lysa TerKeurst, through some of the trials that she has gone through, and she shares some of the ways she has learned to understand the pain and continue moving forward. By trusting God and bringing Him closer, anyone can overcome challenges that they once thought were impossible. Questions this book answers. 1. How can God allow us to experience pain without intervening? 2. How can you avoid becoming vulnerable to Satan's plan during times of emotional and physical pain? 3. How can you change your frame of mind and use God's truth to cope with disappointments and avoid despair? Sometimes pain can be really crushing. So crushing that it feels like our relationships, our finances, our families, our homes, whatever is not going well, have shattered. More than just shards, which could be put back together, it feels like what we once had has turned into dust. What we're left with is a feeling of hopelessness, darkness. We feel that God is too far and cannot help us anymore. But what if the dust is all part of God's plan? Dust is what allows Him to create something new. In Genesis, God used dust to create man. In John, Jesus used dust to give a blind man sight. That's not to say that being surrounded by dust is easy. It isn't. When we're surrounded by dust, all we want is to just take a break and overcome our sorrows and grief. In many cases, even more pain comes to greet us. We think, why now? But the truth is there's never a convenient time to feel this way. Even with something that feels as final as death, it's really just a beginning. This is the beginning that believers of Jesus Christ all want to be a part of when our earthly body turns to dust, but we receive our heavenly bodies that will never wear out, decay in any way, or ever be reduced to dust. As humans, we want to be in control of everything, but God is in control. God is not working with the same assumptions that we are. He knows and sees much more than we do, and the dust is all a part of His perfect plan for us. Sitting in the dust is one thing. We still have to get through each long day ahead of us, including today. Most of us are in search of quick fixes. We look for magic pills and instant diets. But counselors don't prescribe a quick fix, nor do doctors, nor will God make a quick fix appear before us. Healing is a process to be embraced, and sometimes pain is a warning signal that can save us. We wait until things break before we try to fix them. The pain can be a sign that something is severely wrong. For example, if you are having physical pains and go to the doctor, you may have a chance to correct what's wrong before it's too late. Without that pain, you wouldn't think to ask for help. That is God's gift. On top of the pain, we have to deal with our daily lives. We have to see the same people we saw before the hurt began. And not all people are sympathetic or compassionate to our problems. That's where slowing down a little bit can help us get through each day. People tend to put on a display to show the world that they're great. We've got fancy job titles and amazing photographs to cover up what's really going on inside. And it's really scary to strip down those cover-ups. So when we share our pain, some people are quick to point out what they would have done better. That can send us spiraling even deeper into our pain. We are in control. We must face our fears of being seen as we truly are. We can limit how much the words of others tap into our own fears and thoughts. Ultimately, we choose what we dwell on. Likewise, we choose what we forget. But what really matters is God's word. Satan looks for us when we're isolated. It's at this time when he can influence us most easily. Satan studies us in our disappointments. Then he uses temptation, deception, and accusation to reach his goals. A temptation may seem quite innocent at first. It may even seem like self-care. Temptations don't come with a warning label for what will happen later on, once you're far enough down that dark road and can't turn back. Then there's deception. To avoid deception, we have to be honest with ourselves and find out what is causing us to have desires in the first place. Then there is an accusation. Once we sin, Satan will know exactly how to make us feel like we are unworthy of being forgiven. He'll say, "Look at what you've done now." And the sin in question will be very difficult to walk away from. There is one thing to realize when you're feeling tempted: God is not expecting perfection from any of us. Try to be as honest with yourself as possible and understand what is driving your feelings and thoughts before you give in. Focus on the truth. Focus on praise. It is your best weapon against the enemy. Awkward. All of this can feel awkward. Life throws awkward moments at you and all we want is a bit of normal. And it can certainly feel awkward when we don't know what God has planned for us. There are many situations that can make us feel uncertain, scared, or just plain tired, but we still have to get through life, day by day. Between the two gardens, it seems there is a whole lot of I don't know. It's scary, but maybe the I don't know is actually helping us. Knowing may be a burden greater than we could ever bear. Perhaps that normal life we dream of is one that will pull us farther away from God. Perhaps the difficulties we face are God's way of keeping us close to Him. Using God's truth whenever we are scared, shattered, disappointed, or caught off guard won't change what is happening in front of us, but it will surely change the way that we see it. It's up to us to choose the fighting words that will bring us closer to God and His truth, and call them or sing them out when we're feeling down. Reality strikes hard sometimes. People have a tendency to want a life that looks and feels a certain way. We dream of things like a white picket fence, a perfect marriage, or a blossoming career. But part of this life is disappointment. When reality doesn't deliver on those dreams, we attempt to avoid reality, pretending the problems are not there, or maybe we even chase perfection, creating the appearance of a normal, wonderful life on social media. We most certainly don't talk about our disappointments as much as we should. The fact is, we do not live in a world of perfection. We are between Eden and Eden restored, and it is between these two gardens that we cannot truly expect predictability, perfection, or even normalcy. And when reality delivers challenges and pain, we must realize that we are here for a reason. All disappointments have potential, but we can only see that potential if we really trust God. This trust becomes especially important when you realize that when we're in pain, whether it's physical pain, loneliness, confusion, it is easy to doubt our faith and to doubt that God is good. But, in the background, evil is waiting to take advantage of our state to pull us towards sin. That's why we need to wrestle well here, between the two gardens, acknowledging what we feel and allowing ourselves to be led by our faith. Suffering is a dark place, to be sure. Sometimes when we believe we just can't handle anymore, more terrible things come our way. It feels cruel. It makes us feel like we just need to survive. We want to scream and shout. We want to ask questions like, why now? And why me? We ask God, where are you? God's promises are for everyone, no matter how dire the situation. Whether they're in a life-threatening situation or whether they're saddened by a breakup or feeling down about a few extra pounds. God's hope is for all of us, no matter the size of the mountain we're climbing. Long-suffering means having or showing patience despite troubles, especially those caused by other people. And there's a reason it's called long. It isn't something you can race through and get over with quickly. There is a purpose here. That purpose is preparation. God sees what we'll need in the future. He knows how to prepare us properly, so that we won't be too weak and suffer other dangers later on. So, we must be patient in our times of suffering. God knows that we're suffering, and He will restore us in the end. In a way, He is preparing us for what is coming. He is making us stronger even when we are feeling weak. In this way, we'll be able to handle what is coming to us in the future. And, yes, sometimes He gives us more than we can handle. In these times, He wants us to turn to Him, to rely on His strength. To get through these times, we can take a higher perspective. Part of processing our grief is understanding the difference between news and truth. Getting the memo that you're being laid off is news. The truth transcends news. Truth is what factors God into the equation. So when you feel like something is impossible and hopeless, think of God's perspective. He knows what He's doing. He sees more and knows more than we possibly can. And above all, He has a reason for this. Moments of weakness are only natural during times of grief, distress, pain, or disappointment. One thing leads to another and triggers a strong reaction deep within us. We don't even have the time to think about the reaction, it just boils up within us. It's the time when we want to scream or tell someone off. It's a time when we may even question our faith. Our emotions take control, and not in a good way. Maybe someone comes to us from a good place and asks us a question or shares their story. At the time, for us, it may not feel like it came from a very good place at all. We may think, I know this is a good person, so why are they attacking me like this? Or maybe we've been under so much stress lately that when we order lunch and get the wrong sandwich, our whole day is ruined. Don't blame yourself for this, but do take notice of what is happening. There is a lot going on in our minds, a whole history that's holding us back, pain that went unresolved, questions that went unanswered. They're in our brains, just waiting to pull us back into a dark place. To be able to run free, we must do 3 things. We are to throw off what hinders us. We are to stay free of the entanglements of sin. We are to persevere by keeping our eyes on Jesus, who is the author of our story of faith.